Distinguished delegates, honored speakers, respected colleagues, and visionary leaders, greetings from Canada. My name is Jodi Bryant. I was born and raised on the west coast of British Columbia, and for the past 25 years, I've made Saskatoon, Saskatchewan home. It snowed 2 weeks ago. I'm an educator by trade. I love people, I love music. I'm a spiritual caregiver and an entrepreneur. Since 2008, I have worked at the intersection of executive coaching, clinical counseling, leadership development, and faith-based healing through my company, Life Change Coaching, Counseling, and Consulting, and my charity, Reconciliation Resources. As many have said, it's an honor and a privilege to stand with you today. I want to begin with a simple question. There's been lots of amazing questions today. This one's going to go a little more inward. How do people feel in your presence? Have you had a chance to think about that in your journey? Not simply what do you accomplish, what do you produce, what do you manage, but how do people feel around you? Do they feel smaller or stronger? Do they feel anxious or anchored? Do they feel managed or genuinely seen? Because leadership, as we know, is not just what we accomplish. Leadership is what people experience in our presence. And I believe, as many of you do, we're living in a time where people across the world are exhausted emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Organizations, as we've heard already today, are facing burnout. Communities are facing division. Teams are functioning, as we've heard, under chronic stress, uncertainty, emotional fatigue, and we can't forget fear-based pressure. Many workplaces today operate in survival mode. Do people thrive in survival mode? Most do not thrive in environments where they must survive emotionally. For generations, as we've heard, leadership models have often been built around command control, performance, pressure, fear of failure, fear of weakness, and fear of being replaced. Fear may produce compliance for a season, but it rarely produces healing, trust, innovation, or sustainable excellence. And that is why I believe, as many of you, the future of leadership requires something deeper. Not weaker leadership, not softer standards, but emotionally healthier leadership. Leadership that understands that human beings are not machines to manage. They are lives to steward. We've heard that today. There's a lot of commonality in our theme, isn't there? People carrying invisible burdens we may never fully see. Those are some of the people in who we mentor or disciple or work with. What if the most transformational leaders of our generation are not simply powerful leaders, but perhaps healing leaders? What if leadership itself could become sanctuary? When many people hear the word sanctuary, they think of a place, a chapel, a shelter, a retreat, a refuge from the storm. But I believe sanctuary is more than a place we just visit. It can become something we carry, something we become. A grounded leader becomes a soft place to land in a hard world. And that kind of leadership begins internally before it ever becomes external. Because if we are internally chaotic, emotionally reactive, constantly depleted, and disconnected from ourselves, eventually that atmosphere spills into every room we lead. People may not always remember our exact words, but they sure will remember how their nervous system felt around us. There was a season earlier in my work when I was supporting individuals carrying tremendous emotional exhaustion and trauma, people who looked functional on the outside, successful, but internally felt overwhelmed, unseen, and depleted. I remember one woman crying and crying, sitting across from me during a session, apologizing repeatedly for crying. Finally, she stopped and said something I'll never forget. She said, "I open and spend so much of my life trying to hold everything together for everyone else, that I no longer know where I am allowed to fall apart safely." That moment deeply impacted me, especially as a leader of people. Not because her experience was rare, but because it wasn't. And I realized that many people are silently carrying emotional weight while still showing up every day to lead teams, raise families, support organizations, and care for others. Sometimes the greatest gift of a leader can offer is not another strategy, another demand, or another performance metric. Sometimes the greatest gift is creating an environment where people no longer feel they must hide their humanity in order to belong. This is the leadership shift I believe our world desperately needs, because people mirror the emotional environments leaders create. A fearful leader creates fearful teams. A reactive leader creates anxious cultures. A disconnected leader creates emotional distance through the organization. But grounded leaders create grounded people. Leaders who embody emotional steadiness, empathy, humility, and integrity create cultures where trust can grow. And trust, as we've heard, changes everything. Trust fuels creativity. Trust strengthens collaboration. Trust allows people to contribute without fear. Trust creates resilience during uncertainty. Without trust, organizations may function temporarily, but they rarely flourish. And flourishing matters, because leadership should not merely extract performance from people. It should help develop the people themselves. That is why becoming sanctuary requires inner work. It requires self-awareness, emotional honesty, healthy boundaries, rest, humility, and reflection. And perhaps more importantly, it requires recognizing that healing and leadership are not separate conversations. The most effective leaders are often the ones who have done enough internal work to stop leading from unhealed fear. Because when leaders refuse to address their own emotional wounds, exhaustion, insecurity, or unresolved pain, organizations eventually absorb it. But healed leadership creates safety. Not comfort without accountability, not passivity, safety. And safety is not the enemy of excellence. Safety is the foundation of sustainable excellence. People do their best work when they feel psychologically safe enough to contribute honestly, creatively, and authentically. The sanctuary-centered leader understands this. They lead firmly, but not harshly. They correct without humiliation. They challenge without dehumanizing. They create accountability without fear, without creating fear. And in doing so, they create something rare in today's world: emotionally healthy environments. Environments where people can just grow rather than just merely survive. where mistakes become opportunities for learning rather than a source of shame, where people feel valued not only for what they produce, but for who they are. Because leadership is not confined to boardrooms. Parents lead, teachers lead, counselors lead, faith leaders lead, community leaders lead. Every person here influences emotional environments somewhere. Every one of us leaves an emotional imprint on the people around us. The question we should ask ourselves, what kind of imprint are we leaving? Because long after people forget our presentations, titles, or accomplishments, they remember whether they felt diminished or dignified in our presence. In a world becoming increasingly loud, reactive, divided, and emotionally exhausted, becoming sanctuary may be one of the most radical forms of leadership left. So today, I'll leave you with this. May we become leaders who bring calm into chaos. Leaders who create trust instead of fear. Leaders who know how to listen before they speak. Leaders who protect dignity. Leaders who help people breathe again. Because true leadership is not simply about directing people. It's about creating environments where human beings can heal, grow, contribute, and flourish. And perhaps the greatest legacy we leave behind may not be what we've built, but how deeply people feel safe, valued, and seen while building it with us. Let me lead you with an Aaronic blessing. May God bless you and keep you, and may his face shine upon you and keep you and be gracious to you and turn his face towards you and give you peace. Thank you.
I think I was loud enough just speaking without a mic. Thank you very much once again, Dr. Jodi.
Hey.
Not Dr. Jodi, I do apologize. Ms. Jodi Bryant, actually, may I please ask you to stay on the stage once more? I know there's a lot of photos, but I would like to invite, of course, Dr. Nitu and Dr. Jidi Singh to please join us on stage to take a photo with you, please. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Jodi Bryant, on your message on healing and reconciliation. And thank you for being here once again to contribute to the Global Leadership and Legacy Conclave 2026.